They don't know, is it a question? Is it a verdict? What, are they just going home for the day? And so, their anxiety reaches its peak when they get back into the courtroom, and then now they find out it's just another question. So again, no finality for them, but another question.
It is, the way our system is that, the fate of this person is mostly in the hands of this jury, which is a recommendation that will then be decided ultimately by the judge. But these are your peers. These are your peers in South Florida, in Broward County, and it is, just tough to look into this gallery and see the Guttenbergs and the Montaltos and Ryan Petty and all of these family members who have been there. I think that's Debbie Hickson's son, who also gave a pretty impactful victim impact statement. One of the things that the judge reminded the jurors, as emotional and as gut-wrenching as those victim impact statements were, they cannot be used as aggravating factors under Florida statute. Which is not to say that the jurors aren't going to think about them and consider them, but
they're human beings, and so they've heard that, so that has an impact on them as the impact of the victim's loss of life to the community and to the family. It's not an aggravating factor. It's not a mitigating circumstance, but it's there for a reason, and it has an impact on them. I mean, you mentioned the fact that the community is part of this. You're to be judged by a jury of your peers. A lot was talked about pre-trial. The defense moved to change venue. They didn't think it was appropriate there. I think that it was an appropriate place. The pre-trial publicity for this case was worldwide. Not even just nationwide, worldwide. So there wasn't going to be anybody who hadn't heard about it. So moving this case to Orlando, to Miami, to Palm Beach County, it wouldn't have changed that dynamic. And for the community to be the place where this case was tried and where the jurors were drawn from, and from them to decide, I think it was as important to the community itself as it is to the defendant to be tried by a jury of his peers, and for the victims' families and for the next of kin, and for those victims who were still affected by this and who are, fortunately for them, still alive, to have it decided in their community, because it's going to allow the community to heal as well.
And changes have been made on the community and the state level because of this, because of the extra scrutiny on Broward County, and why were there red flags that were potentially missed. There was a bill that passed in a bipartisan way and signed by Governor Rick Scott as a result of this, creating some red flag laws, for example, that didn't exist before this. And
hopefully we'll never have to sit through this again. Unfortunately we have in other communities, but yeah, there's a reshaping of the way things are done and the way our children go to school and the way we all go to shop in the supermarket, as a result.
Sounds like there's audio, so let's listen.
Has not been able to establish some kind of protocol for this, for the gun to go back. They can't get a hold of anyone on any of those trials that you described to ask what the procedure may be for doing that.
Okay. It's late. You can do it. Obviously, you can do whatever you want, but it's absolutely preposterous. The sheriff's office can't control what goes back to the jury room. What if it's a machete? Machete's more dangerous than a rifle without any bullets. You can't take a machete back because one of the jurors will have to pop one with another. I mean, a knife's more...
But Mr. Satz, they're in charge of security, and if they're telling me for security reasons that they need to take some measures before they allow it, I have to stay in my lane.
That's okay, but and I'm not fighting with you, maybe I'm just spouting. You do what you feel you have to do, but they're jumping in your lane. You control what the jury sees, not the sheriff's office.
They're saying it's for security, and when they use that word, I defer to them. I think that they're going to go along with what you're saying. They just want to know the process by which it should take place.
I have no objection to that. I agree with you, no harm, no foul. But it's ridiculous. That's all I'm saying.
I think they're aware of exactly how you feel, and they feel bad that they weren't more prepared for this. With that being said, I was going to excuse the jurors about this time. Captain Tianga assures me that this will be taken care of before the jurors return in the morning so that it can be waiting for them in the morning. Other than that, is there any reason why I can't excuse the jurors and have them retire for the evening?
Not from the state, no, we got no problem.
Is either side asking for a special instruction or any instruction that I should give the jurors before they're dismissed? Other than what I've already given them?
I don't think it's necessary, Judge. You told them before.
I just, in the abundance of caution, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, as long as they know there's no deliberations outside the jury room.
Okay? And they do know that, and we have people that'll be watching them. So,
And Judge, what will be the procedure in the morning? Will they just be brought back to begin deliberations without reconvening court? If we can agree to that procedure?
sure. What is the preference of both sides?
We have to know.
Well, if they come back to the, I guess we'll have to figure out the procedure about the gun by the morning, because that's something that needs to be addressed, whether they go back to the jury room or come back to the box. That's something that has to be addressed.
Sure. I guess the problem is because it's 5:25, they can't get a hold of the legal department. They can't get a hold of anybody to give them some guidance on this. But I'd ask that be done first thing in the morning, and the sheriff's office first thing in the morning for them is like 6 o'clock or whatever time their shift starts. 7?
I'm sure it'll be worked on tonight.
It's going to be worked on tonight. So I see what you're saying. We need to address that first thing.
Yes.
Do you all know, Charlotte?
So they're trying to figure out when they're going to deal with this gun issue, if the jury's going to reconvene in open court when they come back in the morning and get some instructions on how to deal with the gun, and then go back to the deliberation room. But David, you were saying that Michael Satz seems to be right on this one. I mean, this is something that's done frequently, correct?
In all the cases I tried as a state prosecutor and as a defense attorney, if there's evidence, it goes back to the jury room. And if it's a gun, the gun's made inoperable, and it just never goes back when the ammunition is back.
But I thought that was, like I said, I thought that was something that they talked about a couple of days ago. They figured it out.
Apparently, Broward Sheriff's Office didn't get the message, and you can see.
Well, I think what Satz was saying is it's not just
You
the
can
Broward
see
Sheriff's
his
Office,
frustration.
right? It's
They should be
the
here at
judge's call.
8:30. So we can reconvene it tomorrow at 8:30 to put the protocols for the gun on the record so that it can go right back with them when they get here.
Just the one thing I want to be careful about is, so they're going to be brought back here, and they're going to be put into the jury room, I assume, right away. They may feel they can just begin deliberations again, and that's fine with us, because that's what's going to happen. If they're all
Okay.
together and they're alone, they'll probably talk about the case,
Okay.
which they should have permission to do.
Sure.
And, I think we can address the gun early, but let them begin their deliberations, because they'll be sitting in the room and they're going to deliberate. Unless you keep them, downstairs on the third floor, and we don't want to do that.
Well, unless we meet earlier and resolve the gun issue before they get here.
We can't have any right now.
Okay. I'm being told a more reasonable time to have them here is 9 o'clock. So if we meet at 8:30 and they get here at 9 o'clock, that should be sufficient.
Absolutely.
Now, if I hear from the sheriff's office tonight, I will be sure to email both sides to give you any update, and I imagine that this will be resolved by the morning because everyone's working on it. Okay?
Okay.
So for tonight, they're going to be excused. For tomorrow, we're going to meet at 8:30, and that way we'll have this issue taken care of before they get to the jury room.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, we're in recess until tomorrow morning.
Okay, so it sounds like she's hoping to hear back from the sheriff's office tonight on what to do with the gun, even though it seems like it's sort of an established thing that happens all the time.
You could both see and feel the frustration that Michael Satz had when they were telling him the gun can't go back. You could just feel it come through the television. It seems a little ridiculous, but it's the end of the day. It's been a long day. It's been a long trial for everybody, so I think that they're better off to figure this out, decide what they're going to do about getting the gun back there, resolve it, and then come back tomorrow and let them start fresh.
Well, could they have said, okay, listen, the gun thing hasn't been resolved, but do you want to keep working? Because it seemed like the jury wanted to keep working tonight.
They could have said that too, but they're in an impasse here, and they're never going to resolve the gun issue tonight. So if they're working, and what they're working on hinges upon them seeing the gun and holding the gun, that's just going to hold things up. So they just decided to cut their losses for the day, let everybody go, and regroup again in the morning. And it sounds like the attorneys are going to come back at 8:30 along with Broward Sheriff's Office, and everybody will straighten out how the gun is going to get back into the jury room, but no ammunition back there. And then the jurors will come back at 9, and the gun will be in the jury room. There will be no ammunition in the jury room, and they'll resume their deliberations.
And presumably looking, as you said, at the gun, maybe perhaps feeling how heavy it is, feeling how difficult it is to maneuver with the gun, which would run contrary to some of what the defense experts had testified on, which was that he had poor fine motor skills.
Right. Again, to me, that seems to indicate that there are one or more jurors back there who are focusing on a defense expert and their testimony about his stuttered or stunned development, whether it's from fetal alcohol spectrum disorder or if it's from another condition that he has, or whether or not he was malingering and falsifying test results and not hitting the button as fast as he could. They know what they saw in the video. They haven't asked to see the video again. They haven't asked to see that particular piece of evidence. And so now somebody perhaps is suggesting that, well, he couldn't have held the gun. Look how big it is. And say, okay, fine, let's get the gun. That's always the easiest way to answer a question or a dispute. If you're arguing about something, and again, I've never been in a jury room when there are jurors deliberating, but if you're arguing about something and there's something there to show to another party, okay, here, you want to see what if, well, let's get it. They said we could have it.
Right, and
let's
the jurors so far have had that experience where, they've seen the video, they've seen what happened to the victims via those awful autopsy photos.
Right.
They've walked through the 1200 building. Now for them to be able to hold and touch and see what was being used by the shooter at the time might aid them in making that decision.
Well, we can only speculate.
Okay, well, that's the deal. Unless anything changes, and we don't think it will, if they are dismissing the jury, then the jury is dismissed. They're going to go back to their hotel. They cannot talk to each other. They have to be careful.
They can talk to each other.
Well,
they can eat dinner.
They can, but not about the case.
Not about the case.
Correct, not about the case. They are having their items searched, as we were told yesterday, so they can't bring any contraband in. They can't bring any alcohol in. If they want to have a glass of wine, they can only have 2, and they have to buy them themselves. That was according to the judge yesterday.
The rules are the rules.
Rules are the rules. They'll be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and so will we. As soon as anything happens in court, we will bring it to you live. Thanks for joining us today.